Well, that was the last time we were with you on Wednesday night. And what did you think when you watched what went down in Houston in Game 6? As without KD, Golden State knocked them out.
I never said this about teams. I thought that was one of the worst choke jobs I've ever seen an NBA team have.
Really?
For the Rockets.
For the Rockets?
You want to give some credit to Golden State?
No, Golden State, I gave them credit. They won the series. But for them to lose a home game. Now, if they had lost Game 7 at Golden State, that to me would be totally different. But to have Golden State shorthanded, come down to Houston, lose, I think that was just a choke job, plain and simple. Shout out to for Steph Curry not to score the first half. I was watching that game. I said, I think the Warriors gonna win this game. But listen, give the Warriors all the credit. They played a good game. Go ahead, Shaq.
I knew Steph was gonna have a good game because he didn't have to defer. Like when you have to defer, Kenny knows.
But you didn't see him scoring nothing in the first half.
Well, he only didn't score because, he was in foul trouble. And Kenny knows that for shooters, it's all about rhythm. If you're in foul trouble, you can't get a rhythm, you can't score any points. But, being that he doesn't have to defer and he can do all that and get to a shot, he got into a nice little rhythm.
Yeah, 33 in the second half, 23 in the fourth quarter.
I thought, Houston should have did a better job of at least trying to get the ball out of his hand.
Yeah, I said it, and Klay Thompson was phenomenal as well.
Yes.
But when I think of choke, Charles, I think of there's something that you're doing and you were scared to do. When I didn't look at Houston as, well, that's something they were scared to do. James Harden didn't really want to take shots, or CP3 didn't want to take shots. So to me, it doesn't feel like choke. It feels more like a system that can't get by the system of Golden State.
Kenny, they were up 3-2 last year with Kevin Durant.
Yes, they were.
They were up 3-2, so don't give me that bogusness.
I don't think that the system is working.
But I'm saying they were up 3-2 last year. We weren't saying the system wouldn't work.
Yep.
No, I was.
For them,
I was like, it's going to be tough to win. I think everyone says
they were
it's
up
tough
3-2.
to win.
But hold on,
that way.
That's not the point I want to make, though. They were up 3-2 last year. Nobody was saying their system wasn't going to work. For them to have a home game without Kevin Durant and lose, that can't happen.
Okay, but what makes it? Okay, you want to give Golden State credit. You got to give Steph.
You got to give.
But what makes it? I gave the definition of what a choke is to me. What makes it?
There's a game you have to win. Mm-hmm. Like I say, if they had lost Game 7 at Golden State, I'm like, hey, the Warriors, awesome. But for the Warriors to come down there shorthanded, and the Rockets been on this mission, we're going for the Golden State Warriors. You cannot let them come to your house and beat you. Okay. Plain and simple.
Golden State advances in 6 over Houston. Now, who would they get? So you're Joel Embiid and you're on the road and it's Game 7. What's your mindset?
Well, the youngsters need to understand that when we criticize them, we're actually giving them the answers to the tests. See, some of these guys are so sensitive they don't really hear what we're saying. I learned not to complain because my father's a military man. You ever heard of Walter Reed Hospital?
Yeah.
So I go to Walter Reed Hospital. He used to take me there every year, and I see amputees and these guys. These guys wanted to go back to war. And on the way back, he said, son, you should never complain. You make a lot of money. You do a lot of things. You should never complain. And as I go back to when I was younger watching all the other players, I never seen the other greats complain. You never said you never heard Michael Jordan say, oh, I have the flu. Like, he just came out and he performed. He got 45 points. So what we're saying is, you're a young guy, you make a lot of money, play, represent. You don't have to complain about aches and bruises. Charles has said this many times. We all have aches and bruises, but the great Kenny Smith has said, this is where you make your fame. So, if you lose, nobody's going to say you lost because you had the flu or you had upper respiratory. They're going to say you lost because you didn't play well. So don't
Maybe
complain.
That close to game time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, right before the game. Kicked off at less than a half an hour.
Yeah.
He's eating. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Well, first of all, listen, it's interesting about all these young guys today. They never call on us and say, hey, thanks for the kind word and telling me how great a player I am. But when they play like crap and we call them out, we don't know what we're talking about. Listen, I'm easy to find. I've always said he's a hell of a player. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be one of the greatest ever. If he can stay healthy, the verdict's still out on that. But I get sick of these guys complaining. These young guys, they never call us and say, when I bragged about him and Ben Simmons a few years ago, saying they're going to be the future of the NBA, he didn't call me and say, hey, Charles, thanks for the kind words. But listen, I'm going to criticize guys that they deserve it. And listen, they can kiss my ass if they don't like it.
Happy Mother's Day to you. So, Toronto wins this game if, Kenny?
They control the pace. As much as Joel Embiid has been the focal point of what's going on between all the things that Raj just said, the most important thing is, to me, is Ben Simmons. When he is playing at a pace that make Jimmy Butler and J.J. Redick comfortable, and Tobias Harris, they've won. When he's been slowed down and they play half court, their entire team has suffered. And we just saw a game where Damian Lillard didn't score well, but he controlled the pace of the game, he got others involved, and he let C.J. McCollum become an offensive juggernaut. Because the pace of the game, he still was able to get guys into it. And if Ben Simmons doesn't do that, and Kawhi Leonard slows him down, it will be curtains for the Philadelphia 76ers.
One of the things that we talked about before the series started was looking back at the regular season and Ben Simmons, the trouble he had when Kawhi Leonard checked him, and he had like 8 turnovers per game. There have been 3 games in this series when Leonard's been on him for at least 25 possessions in a game, and Simmons has not turned the ball over in those games. How about rebounding? Because Kyle Lowry says it, Marc Gasol says it, Nick Nurse says it. He says you cannot let Philly continue to dominate the boards. That's going to be the key to the game. What do you say?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be the key game. But, to add on what Kenny is saying about Philly, when you're on the road, you as the 2 main players, you have to make the others feel comfortable. If you just come out and play your game, as the game goes along, the others will be more comfortable because it's going to be a hostile environment. Toronto's going to have their runs, but if Embiid comes out and plays like he played in Game 6, and Ben also gets in double figures and get rid of those triple singles, they have a chance.
Can Philadelphia win this game on the road?
Oh yeah, they can win the game because it's going to be interesting.
But will they win the game?
Obviously, I don't know the answer to that. If you're going to make me hold my feet to the fire, I'm taking the Raptors. But to me, it's going to come down to the role players for the Raptors. Siakam, Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, because I don't think Brett Brown's going to let Kawhi get 35 to 40 points. I wouldn't if I was a coach. I'm going to make those other guys beat me. Kawhi's not going to get 40 and beat us.
So you're going to double team him?
Yes, I am. I'm going to make those other guys make plays. As for the Philadelphia side, to me it's going to come down to Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. That's what they were bought in for. Philadelphia got this far last year with Embiid and Simmons. They bought in Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris for this Game 7. And on the flip side, this is what Toronto bought Kawhi Leonard in. This is what you bring a superstar in for a Game 7.
And there's a big picture scenario on this too for Kawhi Leonard and for the Raptors.
Listen, I hope Toronto's my favorite city. I hope he stays there. But I think this is more because if Kawhi Leonard leaves there, I think it'll be the end of basketball in Toronto personally.
Well, I would add this. LeBron James has left the Eastern Conference. The Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis has said, we're taking over it. We're going to take it over. These are the other 2 teams who were primed to take it over, along with Boston. Boston has fell off, and these are the teams. So now you have to say, if you can't get there without LeBron being there, you'll never get there.
Game 7, Sixers and Raptors coming up at the top of the hour. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Santino.
Thank you, Santino.
For cleaning up that one. And
yeah,
of course,
that.
Who can forget that with Jesse Ventura?
Yeah.
On Listen Up.
Oh, yeah.
You could have another show.
Right. Frank Vogel is the new head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Later, we'll ask our man Woj if he considers this sexy. It took the Lakers a month from the firing of Luke Walton, the official hiring of Frank Vogel. If you didn't hear much about him this past season because he wasn't coaching, Vogel was the 5th and final candidate to be interviewed by the Lakers. And according to Adrian Wojnarowski, he's agreed to come on board for 3 years, a 3-year deal. So the Lakers will be Frank Vogel's 3rd head coaching stop in the NBA. Reached the playoffs 5 times with the Pacers, 2 trips to the conference finals, He had to face LeBron James in Cleveland then. Vogel also spent a couple of seasons with the Magic, won just 54 games during his tenure there. All right, Woj joins us now for some perspective on all this. There are some observers who wouldn't call this the sexiest pick ever, but how did it get done?
Once the Lakers lost out on their top two choices, Kenny, Monty Williams and then Ty Lue, they went to a secondary list, and the influence of Kurt Rambis and even Phil Jackson really is felt in this Frank Vogel hiring. They flew him in on Thursday. By Saturday morning, he had an offer to be the Lakers coach with a stipulation that Jason Kidd would be part of his staff. Vogel talked with Jason Kidd, and they'll move forward together to lead this post-Luke Walton era.
Well, you mentioned Jason Kidd right there. He comes as part of the deal. It was compulsory. Does that immediately have him looking over his shoulder or down the bench? Because here's another guy who's coached in the league, and if things start slowly, they got a guy standing by to be the new man.
Well, that's going to be a challenge for Jason Kidd, and I think he's determined to show that he's going to be a loyal assistant coach. Certainly he has a relationship from his playing days with LeBron James. They were together in Team USA, played together. They were competitors for a very long time. And I know they've talked here in the last couple of days about this possibility. But Jason Kidd's going in to be an assistant coach. And Frank Vogel, who, while he had a difficult run in that rebuild in Orlando, had a very successful run as Indiana's head coach, certainly very well respected, especially on the defensive end. This isn't a Showtime glamour coach, but the Lakers, there were none in the market for the Lakers. They went with a coach in Frank Vogel who's had success in the league and now gets a chance to coach LeBron James and then a very young core in L.A. around him.
And who knows about free agency? This won't be the last time we talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. Thanks for joining us, Woj.
Thanks, Kenny.
All right, so Frank Vogel gets to work with LeBron James. It's been a bad experience working against him. Lost him 30 times as a head coach, including the playoffs. That's the third most by any head coach, with only Doc Rivers, Dwayne Casey having more. Vogel also eliminated from the playoffs 3 times by LeBron, tied for the most by any coach. But now they're on the same club.
Joined now by Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A., I can't wait for this presser. How does Jeannie Buss sell to all of America that Frank Vogel was their top choice all along to run the Lakers show?
Well, first of all, she's not going to be able to sell it. That's number one. I mean, Frank Vogel is respected. Make no mistake about it. He coached 10 years in Indiana. 5 of the last 6 years he made the postseason, including 4 straight years and 2 consecutive trips to the Eastern Conference Finals. The man can't coach, but it's not about that. He's not a name with sizzle, and we all get that. But here's the biggest reason she's not going to be able to sell him, because he's not expected to be the coach long-term for the Los Angeles Lakers. There's a reason why, whether it was Monty Williams, whether it was Ty Lue or anybody else, the caveat was that you had to accept Jason Kidd on your squad as a developmental coach. It was incredibly imperative to the Los Angeles Lakers that this took place. So one would ask the question, well, why not just hire Jason Kidd as your head coach? Well, it's very, very simple. He has a relatively uncomfortable past. One involved domestic violence. Obviously, it ended up in a divorce. There was a driving while intoxicated charge that he had to deal with as well. Not to mention the fact that whether it was in Brooklyn or Milwaukee, he gave the impression that he wanted more than just head coaching responsibilities. He wanted to run the show. And so as a result of that, it was a struggle for him to get back into the league in a head coaching spot. They knew they couldn't sell him to the public in Los Angeles. They went the route of Frank Vogel. Why? Because he accepted 3 years at $5 million per year, as opposed to the 3 years, $6 million per year that Ty Lue was offered. So you're saving yourself $3 million there by choosing Frank Vogel, not to mention the fact, if there's even a modicum of success that he does not have, Jason Kidd is in line to be the next head coach. He's already on your bench. Obviously, he can maturate himself to the situation, and that's the coach they wanted all along. Kurt Rambis wanted him as coach. Jeannie Buss and the rest of them staff, they wanted him as coach. They knew they couldn't sell him to the public, but for right now, Frank Vogel is the safe pick with Jason Kidd on his bench. And you can expect Jason Kidd to be the next head coach for the Los Angeles Lakers within 2 years.
Stephen, everything you said tells me that Frank Vogel really wanted this job, right? I mean, no coach respected, as you said, as he is throughout the league, wants to be force-fed an assistant who now also has to be looking over his shoulder because Kidd will likely be the next guy. This is an incredibly difficult spot, I think, for Vogel that Ty Lue didn't want to deal with, evidently.
Well, it's not that difficult, and here's why. Excuse me, is it more difficult than unemployment? Because nobody was knocking on his door to hire him as a head coach. I can tell you that right now. Search the other 29 teams in the National Basketball Association. Nobody was looking for Frank Vogel to be the next head coach. That's not to disrespect him, because, again, he can coach, and he's accomplished some things. But the new regime that exists in the NBA, nobody was calling him. So here you have a situation, rather than appearing on Get Up with Mike Greenberg or somebody like that, you're ultimately coaching back in the NBA. You're making $5 million per year. I'm telling you right now, it's beautiful to work for ESPN. Make no mistake about it. But there isn't a guest alive that's getting paid $5 million per. That's what the Lakers are giving him. It's guaranteed at least over the first 2 years. So you're talking about $10 to $15 million. And then in the case of Jason Kidd, keep in mind, this is another reason why you know Jason Kidd is ultimately going to be the head coach. He's still owed almost $10 million by the Milwaukee Bucks. So why take a job with the Lakers as an assistant, which ain't going to be paying you that much unless there's some kind of wink-wink deal in place where you know you're not leaving money on the table to come and take an assistant's job that you really never wanted because you really want to be the head coach. You know you deserve to be the head coach, but there's no way in hell you're going to get the head coaching job until you get yourself back in the league and position yourself to ultimately land that kind of job. So that's the situation that's going on in LA. They'll sell you whatever they want to sell you, but that's why you have me on a Saturday night, because I'm here to tell you what it is.
Good to be with you. Stephen A. Smith on a Saturday night.